Following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
Let's get to this Jonathan Majors situation. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. All right. So, former Marvel superstar Jonathan Majors, he spoke out for the first time since that bullshit verdict was handed down to him last month, I believe, in New York City. Majors was interviewed by ABC, and the interview aired earlier this morning on Good Morning America. And I believe we have the video ready. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and get to it.
Now, our ABC News exclusive with actor Jonathan Majors. Lindsay, you sat down with him.
Yeah, this is Majors' first interview since he was convicted of misdemeanor reckless assault and harassment. And there's really a lot to unpack here. He calls the 2-year relationship with Grace Jabbari toxic, dangerous, and unhealthy. But he is adamant. He says there was absolutely no physical abuse.
I told you, time isn't what you think.
Less than a year ago, the name Jonathan Majors was followed by talk of critical and box office success, skyrocketing fame, even Oscar buzz.
I'm coming for everything.
But this morning, a different conversation surrounds that marquee name.
Something about sitting here right now and looking at you.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, I think my Instagram feed got cut off for some reason. If you're watching on any of these platforms, I'm going to post the link to call in the chat at the conclusion of the topics. I want to talk about this. So if anybody wants to join the discussion, you will have the opportunity.
You and understanding the gravity of the situation. A situation that I, in many ways, put myself in.
The actor spoke exclusively with ABC News for the first time after being convicted in late December for harassment and misdemeanor reckless assault in the 3rd degree, which could carry a penalty of up to a year behind bars.
Why did you decide you wanted to talk now?
I felt like it was time. A lot has happened in my personal life, in my career, in the culture. It's about responsibility and coming forward and being brave and giving my part of the story.
Your reaction to that verdict?
Shock. I was absolutely shocked, and afraid. And I'm standing there, and the verdict comes down. I say, how is that possible? Based off the evidence, based off the prosecution's evidence, let alone our evidence. How is that possible?
But after only hours of deliberation, a jury of his peers agreed with prosecutors that he did physically injure his then-girlfriend Grace Jabbari in an incident last March.
What happened exactly, do you know?
No, I don't know. She's unconscious.
That 911 call from Majors came hours after an argument broke out with Jabbari in the back seat of an SUV when Majors received a text from another woman saying, "Oh, how I wish to be kissing you." Jabbari testified that when she grabbed the phone, Majors tried to get it back, fracturing her finger and giving her a cut behind her ear.
She says inside the car, you hit her in the face, twist her arm behind her back, fracture her middle finger.
Yeah, that did not happen.
How did those injuries come about?
I wish to God I knew. That would give clarity. That would give me some type of peace about it.
But you're confident you didn't cause
I have no question.
Surveillance video shows Majors getting out of the car, followed by Jabbari, whom he then puts back inside the vehicle. What happens next is what the defense remains focused on. Majors runs off, and Jabbari chases after him.
If you watch those videos, and you reverse that, and you saw a black man chasing a young white girl down the street, screaming and crying, that man is going to be shot and killed in the streets of New York City.
Majors' defense team.
That's a little extreme, but I get the point he's trying to make. I think if you got any man chasing a woman down the street, and she's crying and screaming, people are going to come to her aid, and they're going to automatically assume that the person who's running is the victim, which is what he was trying to portray.
He shared these photos, which he says show the injuries he received that night, which were deemed inadmissible in court.
How were you injured?
My injuries were a scratch on my hand, from clawing for the phone, and I had a gash on my, at the time I had a beard. Under my beard I had essentially a fingernail scratch on my cheek from pressure, and that bled overnight.
But prosecutors say Majors was the aggressor. District Attorney Alvin Bragg says the evidence presented throughout this trial illustrated a cycle of psychological and emotional abuse. In court, prosecutors...
Did you just hear that shit? It triggered psychological and emotional abuse. How do you even prove that?
Pointed to a previous argument during which he knocked a candle to the floor.
I completely lost my temper in that moment and threw it all on the ground. That's not something I would want my child to do, and I did that. I absolutely did that, and felt terrible about it.
The prosecution also played audio Jabari had recorded earlier in the relationship where Majors encouraged her to act more like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama.
I'm a great man. A great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in. The woman that supports me needs to be a...
Bro, this is sad. This is all it took. Even though it was a weak ass charge that he got convicted of, this is all it took to ruin his life. Some bullshit.
Great woman.
There are some who question, especially in the black community, as you're probably well aware, that people were saying, well, why was he telling this woman to be like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama?
It was me trying to give an analogy of what it is I'm aspiring to be. These great men, Martin, President Obama, and trying to give a reference point to that. One of the things I also say is I need her, in that case Grace, to make the same sacrifices that I am making.
In a statement to ABC News, an attorney for Jabari said in part, it is not at all surprising that Mr. Majors continues to take no accountability for his actions, adding, the timing of these new statements demonstrates a clear lack of remorse for his actions.
Do you feel you're not responsible for her injuries at all?
I shouldn't have been in the car. I shouldn't have stepped out of the relationship. I shouldn't have been in the relationship. If I'm not in the car, none of this is happening. If I leave the relationship, none of this is happening.
All right, so there we have it, man. So they got this nigga victim shaming his damn self. So let's break this down. Does anyone else find it interesting how ABC completely left out major pieces of evidence during the recap of the trial? They only focused on the part where he put her in the car and ran away. And him comparing her to Martin Luther King or Obama's wives. That's literally all they had on him. As weak as that shit is, granted, I think Mr. Majors is totally oblivious to what's going around him, but his ignorance isn't a crime. But anyways, let's take a look at the evidence that District Attorney Alvin Bragg attempted to bury, which conveniently ABC doesn't even mention in this story. Let's get it. Here we go. All right, so first off, and we're gonna go through this real quick. This is the footage of Grace Jabari after she couldn't find Jonathan Majors. She was wandering around on the street after she chased him, right? This is after she allegedly hurt her ear or cut her ear and messed up her middle finger. Now this clip shows her crying and pacing and using her right hand to hold a cell phone, which she said was broken, and also using it to put on and take off a heavy coat, and to pour her hair in and out of a bun. This, and I'm reading the article, this despite the fractured middle finger prosecutors allege Major has just caused her by twisting that hand. Let's watch the video.
Who's going? What do you want? No way.
Yeah, but I just been in a text message and people were trying to run.
You want to call him?
Now you see that. She claims that he broke her middle finger and cut her right ear. That's what she claimed. But look at her.
It makes you feel better. I know why you do. Why are you the guy that likes you?
I never been
She's got a broken middle finger, but she's tying a bun. Look at this shit.
Thanks, okay? No, basically, I just had to run out of the car.
And like the caption says, her right ear shows no bleeding.
Well, what's funny is,
My boyfriend's weird. I don't want to leave you because we're about to get in our car. Can I help you get a car? Okay. I never.
Look at this bullshit. And this is a 4-minute video. We ain't gonna play the whole thing. But look at this shit. This shit is insane. Let's go back. We got some more video here. Now, here's video of her partying in the club just a few hours later and being twirled around with her right hand on the dance floor. I don't know if you can see that. That's the hand with the broken finger. She's being twirled around in it on the dance floor. How, bro? Look at this shit. Broken middle finger. How? Shit's insane, man. Now, with all this shit being taken into consideration, as a black man in America, I can only come to one conclusion. Now, a lot of people, especially black women, feel like this is what he gets for dating a white woman. But in fact, I'm looking a little deeper into this case. This case, in my opinion, is sound proof that it's not white women per se who are the problem for us here. It's the Democratic Party in general. Now, why do I say that? First of all, we don't have to look any further than the goddamn DA, Mr. Alvin Bragg, the same Democrat flunky who they're using to do their dirty work against former President Trump. It was Mr. Bragg, a black man, who made the sound decision to not only try to bury the evidence against Grace Jabari that we just saw, but it was also Mr. Bragg who decided not to prosecute her, even though NYPD did their job and arrested her. It was also Mr. Bragg who convinced this woman to press charges in the first place. Initially, she wasn't going to. You see, black man, you've been lied to. Notice all the cities where black men are locked up at crazy rates for non-violent crimes. They're all in Democrat jurisdictions. Vice President Harris's time in California is a great example of all that. She locked up like 2,000 niggas for weed. But all the DAs who are trying to make a name for themselves by prosecuting famous black men are Democrats. And it's not just black men who they hate. They hate any and everything that represents masculinity and morals. But why is that? Because their party is controlled by feminists, the alphabet mafia, and possibly China. See, this whole liberal movement is about crippling the men of our society. This ain't even about a black or white thing. At this point, I'm totally convinced that the Democratic Party has been completely compromised and most likely taken over by some sort of communist, Marxist, foreign entity that wants to see the complete destruction of the United States of America. There ain't no way in hell anyone trying to run a powerful nation would sanction the nonsense that's coming out of the rank and file of this political party. From the overly feminized male agenda to the delusional women's empowerment movement to the non-existent southern border, none of this makes any damn sense. And it's high time that the real men in this country step up and vote these clowns out of office.